Hey guys, Budcat7 here. Sorry it's been a long time since I've done a video on this topic, but I've been dealing with some horrible family issues. It's a nightmare, and it's still going on, but that's a different topic, and I don't want to get into it. But in any case, I also have another YouTube channel that I wanted to get off the ground for a couple of years now on a hobby of mine, bicycles, customized bicycles. So I had to get that off the ground too, and I spent the last 6 months, preparing for that and building my bicycles. I've been doing it for a few years, but in any case, not going to talk about that either. We're going to talk about today is I originally wanted to mention that in one of my videos that I have in a playlist. Okay, it's not my video, it's this guy James D. Porter, and it's called Stone Prayers of Southern New England. And what I noticed is that at approximately 51 seconds into this video, um, it shows a cairn in Coventry, Rhode Island, that has a chunk of marble on top of it to top it off, and you can see it right here um, in this video. I just ran by it. There you go. You can see this chunk of marble on top of this cairn, and you know my um, my interest in that was that in my first video, I noticed that these white pieces of marble were along this stone wall in the large mound area, as I'm going to call it, um, that, this whole area, the stone wall in this area, at least in this section of it and some other sections of it, you can see these chunks of marble on top of the wall. So I thought maybe these, white stones were of some significance. So I sort of put it out there. Anybody who might know anything about it. Certainly in this video, you can see this in Coventry, Rhode Island here, this cairn. And I mean, at this point, states like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut have recognized that, these inexplicable things made of stone are now, attributed to the Indians, even though that, the Indians don't claim and have never been noted to claim that they built these things, as it's been stated elsewhere. Okay, I can only leave that up to researchers to confirm that, because I don't know. I've only heard on some of these alternative researchers, that their videos that that was a possibility. So these states have recognized these things as to be built by the Indians because they don't have, as Jim Vieira says, the colonial context, because they're, effigies, cairns, other structures and walls, and even, some people say some of these things that are built like, actual buildings up there, and have been in the past, have been, built by, I guess, the Indians. But, I don't think that. But, that's just my opinion on that, too. But you can see in these stone prayers of southern New England at approximately 51 seconds in there, this cairn with the white stone on top of it. And I'm just wondering if it's any significance. And, we have to be honest with ourselves, and just to note that, it could be in the past, a couple of 100 years that somebody came along and put white stones along the border of this rock wall over here. It could have certainly been rebuilt. It might not be pristine. It may, but I'm thinking there's a possibility that it might have been pristine, and something to do with that large piece of white marble that I found, because I can tell you, I know that area well, and there's a lot of rocks to be found around there, but not a lot of white rocks or pieces of marble. There's certainly none in the brook over there. So I did not find any pieces of marble in the brook at all over there. So I'm just wondering if the white stones are of any significance. But we have to be honest, and we have to be better researchers than they are. Guys like Robert Thorson here, and this fellow here, John Delano, from a PhD, Professor Emeritus, Associate Dean, College of Arts and Sciences at SUNY Albany. This guy also, so, we don't know, it could be that, somebody came along and put these white stones along his fence, the property owner there in the past 100 years, who knows, there's a possibility, but I want to think, that maybe that some parts of this site were untouched and have been preserved just the way they are. Certainly sections of it look that way, and the parts of the wall that I show in my videos, my first video on the walls, my second video on the walls, those walls were probably cannibalized and used for road fill, or used to rebuild the walls that are already there on people's properties. Or, this is common practice around there. People don't want this stone wall, so people do want to stone wall, so they allow people to cannibalize stone walls on their property. And I think that's what happened to these walls, but a very long time ago. If you want to go by the growth in the area there, I think, they probably did it, a long time ago. But in any case, I just wanted to put it out there. If anybody in the alternative research community that's looked at, stone walls in the Northeast can corroborate this thing, I have one reply from A.J. Grabinski. I think it's in my other video. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, on my part two, this fellow subscriber, A.J. Grabinski, and I love you, pal. I thank you for the support and for subscribing and everything. And I think, what you're saying is probably right. He says here, in reply to this long thread here, white quartz is what they thought was sacred, much like Newgrange, these other places, I guess, in Britain or UK. Same peoples built those in Ireland and anomalies in New England. I'm going with that because there's a lot of research that suggests that. And that's along the lines that I'm thinking. But I don't know whether it's, Salutrians or whatever. But, AJ, what you could do me a favor, bro. It's like we want to be professional here. And, if you can get some research on, somewhere where it says this, that white quartz is what they thought was sacred, maybe some, of some, book on Native Americans where this is mentioned, or, wherever, even if you thought you might have read it in a book or an article or seen it somewhere, say something like that, because, we want to corroborate our information. That's what I intend to do here, with books and things that I want to present here to corroborate this stuff. I already did my on-site research and stuff, and I gathered a lot of information with that. And, that's great. But, we have some other things to talk about, too, besides this. So, but in any case, I put it out there. Watch, the stone prayers of southern New England. I'll put the link in the description so you can go right to it. And you can see in this video here, there's a lot of cairns and effigies and things like that that are built on bigger boulders. And I think that's what was going on there at the Mallory site there. And I think a lot of that stuff was cannibalized and used by the locals there or whatever, and unfortunately it was all broken down by the time I got to see it, except for maybe the clam rock there, because you can notice in this video, Stone Prayers of Southern New England, it's very curious, you'll see a number of split stone rocks that they say. This guy says that the Indians have been here for 30,000 years. Well, God bless them. Maybe they have. I don't know. But okay. And then 40,000 years ago, some other people were here that we don't know about either there, buddy. Okay? Not to take anything away from the Indians, because I really hope that the Native Americans are not allowing the white mainstream academics tell them their history. I really hope that, I can't speak on behalf of the Native American Indians. I think it's disrespectful to speak on their behalf. But I hope they're not taking all their historical information, because I've done some research myself, and many of the Indian tribes in the New England area only had like what they claimed, was like myths and legends and folklore and all this kind of other stuff. They don't have like a real written history or anything. And I'll tell you more about that with some of the books that I've read and done research on, because I have done the research. I've done extensive research to break down what these guys are contending. So, but in any case, check out Stone Prayers of Southern New England. You're going to see some split rocks in there, like my big giant clam rock there. They look smaller in this video, but you can see some split stones in here, which I find very interesting. You see the can with the, with the white rock on top of it. Let's face it, somebody could have come along in the past 100 years and say, you know what, that looks like ice cream. I'm going to put a cherry on the top. I'll put this white rock on top of it. We don't know. We can't, corroborate that or verify that. But, at the same rate, neither can they. So, anybody's contention is good here, but I think there's a preponderance of evidence that suggests otherwise, than the mainstream contention. So, in any case, check out Stone Prayers of Southern New England. You look at the white rock on top of the can there. I think that's a pristine thing there. Maybe there is some sort of white rock, tribe or culture or worship of stone, because stone worship is mentioned in historical books. And I'm going to read from one of those books to you in just a minute here. So, check that out, and if anybody has some corroborating footage or photos or video or anything with these white rocks to suggest that there was some sort of white rock culture or worship or rock worship, let me know. And AJ, you let me know too, man. Thanks, buddy. Okay, so in any case, next, really, the real exciting information here is I through my research, and I'm going to show you the book that I've been using to research here. And it's a book that was originally, I don't know if you can see it here. Let me see if I can get back here. Originally published in 1872, and it was reprinted. This book, at least, was reprinted in 1992, I believe. And it's by this, it's called The Indian Tribes of the Hudson River. And by this guy, E.M. Ruttenber. Originally published in 1872 and reprinted in 1992 or 91 or something like that. So Um, I believe originally 6 months ago, when I was doing some deep research into this, there was another book, or I guess it was the companion book to this, or the first book to this. And I read that book in the library, but when I went back there to find it again, I couldn't find it. So I sort of questioned around, and I said to, the librarian there, what happened? Did you get rid of it or whatever? So in any case, she said, yeah, maybe it got stolen or whatever. So I wasn't able to refer to it. But in that book, it said that the Indians claimed, the Indians basically were sedentary, nomadic people who had long ago abandoned their mound building structures. And that's what it said in that book, and that's what they got out of, the people who were, collecting all the information about the Indian cultures at that time or whatever. That's the best they could do. And let me tell you something. The history of the colonial history of America is so scant on paper. It really there is so little recorded history. It's horrible. I mean, it's real. There's like nothing there, and they know it. And unfortunately for guys like this John Delano, who talks about the stone walls, who he's the College of Arts, he's the dean of the College of Art and Sciences. Well, I think his lecture here is more art than science. And in my next video, we're going to tear down some of these things here through the research I did, and part of it is in this book here. But the exciting information that I really want to provide to you today has come out of this book, as far as I'm concerned. And I want to refer to you, John Jensen, this fellow who writes about and has a website. I don't know if he's still around anymore or not, but maybe he is. I want to try to contact him and tell him that I sort of found some sort of corroborating evidence here, a little bit in this second volume of Indian Tribes of Hudson's River. I'm going to read that to you in a second. So check out this video. It's in my playlist, I believe, and it's about artificial canals, and some of them here right on Long Island. And because this book is about the Indian tribes of the Hudson River, all the Long Island Indian tribes are included in the Hudson River tribes, okay? So John Jensen here has, he looks at these artificial canals all over the world, and some of them are right here on Long Island, where I'm at. And the thing with him is that these canals and these artificial harbors that are here on Long Island, and you'll see a number of them on his website if you go to his website. I'll include the links to these videos and the link to his website in the description. But take a look at his findings. He's got these aerial and satellite photographs of these canals all over the world and these artificial harbors here on Long Island. And most of these things are underwater, and he says the last time that they were actually at a time that they would be able to be used as canals and artificial harbors had to be more than 8,007 or 8,000 years ago, because they're underwater now. So the whole thing is underwater. The edges where they're carved out that you can see in the aerial photographs are underwater. So, the last time that was dry land, let's say the sides of the artificial harbors and the artificial canals, right? They're straight line canals, right? The last time that they were usable as canals or harbors, and that the portion of them that would be above water is now below water by several feet or whatever it is. You can see it on his website and hear it in his lecture. But in any case, he puts a dollar value on these things. So, in other words, for us to create the artificial harbors and canals that we see here on Long Island, by way of John Jensen here, um, some of the dollar values on doing this sort of work today and creating an artificial harbor today and these artificial canals today are in the tens of millions of dollars, $40 million, $50 million, $60 million. If we were to do that work today, what it would cost to do that. Okay, and the thing is that these canals and things are associated with an Indian tribe or chief or whatever it is. Even if you had the whole collective tribes of all of Long Island working on these projects day and night, it would take forever for them to do it with the technology that they had. And that's what this guy John Jensen puts forth. I'm not going to tell you anymore. Just watch the video go to his website, look at his stuff. Okay, but right now I'm just going to read to you what I found, and is sort of a connection. And you're going to hear that this is the first time you're going to be hearing this information right here. This actual research, okay, from this book. And by the way, this book, I believe, it's also in the archives, I think, in the Congressional Archives, this book. It says it somewhere in here. I was reading it. So this book is actually in the Congressional Archives, and it was reprinted again in 1992. So evidently they feel that the information is good enough for this book to be in my local library, okay? So I just want to, for the first time here, sort of make a connection between John Jensen's work as identifying these artificial harbors and canals here on Long Island, and some of the things that are said in this book, with other things here that are sort of corroborating the whole story of, perhaps people, as they say in this book, of large stature being the architects of these projects. And let me see if I can find it for you. This is a book from the library. Let's see here. Okay. I'm going to read from this book here that's in the U.S. Congress's archives here, okay? It's considered appropriate book to look at on the history of the tribes of the Hudson River Indians, and this refers to Indians here on Long Island, okay? Canoe Place on the south side of the island near Southampton derives its name from the fact that more than 2 centuries ago, a canal was made there by the Indians. Now, they're saying 2 centuries ago from 1872. So he's saying that it was built in 1672, which doesn't make a lot of sense because 1672, there were Europeans here, as I referred to also in my research on the history of Northport, Long Island, where I'm at now. They were busy eradicating the Indians. There's a rather disgusting story about these religious people, Europeans wiping out the Indians here on Long Island and whatnot. So, I don't know. He's saying 2 centuries ago. So, that more than 2 centuries ago, a canal was made there by the Indians for the purpose of passing their canoes from one bay to the other. That is, across the island from Mecox Bay to Peconic Bay. Although the trench has been in great measure filled up, yet its remains are still visible and partly flowed at high water. It was constructed by Mangatuksi, or Long Knife, who then reigned over the nation of Montauk, a chief of gigantic form, proud and despotic in peace and terrible in war. But although a tyrant of his people, he protected them from their enemies and commanded their respect for his savage virtues. He sustained his power not less by the resources of his mind than by the vigor of his arm. An ever watchful policy guided his counsels, prepared for every exigency. Not even aboriginal sagacity could surprise his canton. To facilitate communication around the seat of his dominion, for the purpose not only of defense but of annoyance, he constructed this canal, which remains a monument of his genius. The praises of Mangatuksi are still chanted in Aboriginal verse to the winds that howl around the eastern extremity of the island. Okay? So here's a reference in this book, this anthropological book, a research done by this guy, E.M. Ruttenber, based on a previous, recorded history from the, Hudson Bay, whatchamacallit, I would say, whatever, explorers, I guess the Hudson Bay explorers, he took it from these histories and these recorded histories. And so there you go. Here's a chief of giant stature, an intelligent guy who used his mind, who was a powerful guy, who constructed these canals, who John Jensen says if they would do the same work today, it would cost tens of millions of dollars for us to do the same work today. And supposedly these Indians did it with, grass baskets and, deer antlers, and they excavated all of these canals and made these artificial harbors. So, okay, well, if you believe that, I got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you, or a canal in Brooklyn to sell you. Okay, so I'm just telling you what I found in this book that I found in my library. So you might want to look at this book, Indian Tribes of Hudson's River. And I think you can find it online. There's a part 1 to it, and that's the part 1 that I was looking for that the library didn't have, where it said that these Indians that they found in New York State and in New England were nomadic and sedentary and had abandoned their mound building, a long time ago. But that was just speculation of the people who found those things. They don't know that. They were just speculating on that because the Indians didn't make claim to them. But so here you have, I'm telling you, if you're a Native American, I don't know if you're letting these white mainstream academics tell you your history and you're just going to go along with it or whatever. I think that's a mistake for anybody who's a scientist or an actual researcher or whatever it is. So I'm just saying that, all right? So in any case, let me just read another snippet from this book from it, because there's some interesting stuff in here. And it just sort of corroborates, or, it calls into question some things. Let me see, did I mark it off here? There was some other great stuff in the appendix. See, in the other book, most of this book is about the relationships of the tribes, the people, the actual people, and their relationships and their peoples and their relationships with other tribes and all this kind of stuff. There really isn't, there's not one mention of stone building or wall building or of stone walls, which, in a way works in the favor of the people who are for, the colonists and the settlers, built all the stone walls. Supposedly, all these um, subsistence farmers built these walls on rented property. I find that hard to believe, but I'm just drawing your attention to that. Oh, this guy Ruttenber refers to Schoolcraft as the historian who brings us a lot of this stuff. Um, there's some very interesting stuff in this book. Um, I'll read to you from this too. Schoolcraft has preserved Schoolcraft is this other historian to that Rudenberg is referring to, has preserved a pictographic inscription on the Esopus rocks, which is in, by the Hudson Valley, which from its antiquity and character appears to denote the era of the introduction of firearms and gunpowder among the tribes inhabiting that section of the valley of the Hudson. He says, quote, "The location of the inscription is on the western bank of the Hudson at Esopus Landing. Other indications have been reported at sundry times of the skill of these ancient Indians in inscribing figures on rocks." Okay? Tracks of the human feet are among these objects, but the progress of building in that vicinity and the existence of but little curiosity on that head appears to have destroyed these interesting traces of a people who now live only in history. The traditions of Ulster County do not refer to a period when this inscription was not there. The inscription may be supposed, if the error is properly conjectured, to have been made with metallic tools. So these ancient Indians, who supposedly did not understand metallurgy, were making inscriptions with metallic tools. In these people's estimation in 1872, who were doing research, he says, this Rutenberg fellow, he says he gets it from Schoolcraft. So this is what it says in this book. That's in the Library of Congress, okay? That's an available history at, your local library, and I'm sure in university and everything else, okay? Let me read it to you again. The traditions of Ulster County do not refer to a period when this inscription was not there. So it was there all the time, okay? As far as they know. The inscription may be supposed, if the error is properly conjectured, to have been made with metallic tools. It says it right there. Metallic tools. The lines are deeply and plainly impressed. It is in double lines. The plumes from the head denote a chief or man skilled in the Indian medico-magical art. The gun is held at rest in the right hand, and the left appears to support a wand. You know what? Maybe it's not a gun, and maybe it sounds kind of Egyptian or something like that. Phoenician, Canaanite. It is in the rampant Indian style, such as an inscription recording the introduction of the gun would not be made when the era had long passed and lost its interest. Indians never resort to historical photography when there is nothing new to tell. Thus, the Indian photography throws a little light on the most rude and unpromising scene, and if the sources of these gratifications are but small, we are indebted to them for this little. No attempt of rude nations to perpetuate an idea is ever wholly lost. So whatever, he's thinking that the Indians did this ancient Indians did this with metallic tools, and it was an important thing. The introduction of the gun, and it had to be just 200 years ago because, that's when the gun was introduced. It couldn't be 1,000 years ago or whatever it is, and it may not be a gun. Whatever. I'm just reading to you what this says in this book, okay? Supposedly Indians that knew nothing of metallurgy had metal tools and they were chiseling things into rocks, the introduction of the gun. Well, I don't know where this inscription is, but I bet it's not a gun. Okay, you make up your own mind. Okay, so in any case, guys, I just want to throw this stuff your way, you know. Okay, this is research from a legit book here. Okay, look it up online if you want. Indian Tribes of the Hudson's River, 1700 to 1850.